The ambulance has been rusting in a ditch for 6 months. The 911 operator is likely dead or looting a pharmacy. Your phone is a brick, and that warm, wet sensation spreading across your stomach is your own life leaking out. You have exactly 3 minutes before your blood pressure drops so low that your brain shuts off the lights forever. Worries we are going to keep you alive using physics, a dirty T-shirt, and the absolute refusal to die quietly. Let's start with hydraulics. The first thing you want to do is panic, which acts like a fuel pump spraying blood. Your heart rate spikes, which acts like a fuel pump spraying your remaining blood out faster. Most people grab a towel and wrap it loosely around the wound. This is a fatal error, like they are drying a dish. A bullet wound is a high-pressure leak in a closed system. Wrapping the outside does nothing for the pipe bursting on the inside. You need to think less like a doctor and more like a plumber. If the blood is bright red and spurting with your heartbeat, you have hit an artery. You are currently bleeding to death. The myth is that you can stop this with direct pressure or a belt. Belts are stiff, they don't pinch, they just make you uncomfortable while you die. You need a windlass tourniquet if you don't have a combat-grade KAT. You have to build one. Grab a strip of fabric at least 2 inches wide, like a ripped shirt, a scarf, or a backpack strap. Tie it high and tight above the wound. Now find a lever, a sturdy stick, a screwdriver, or a metal spoon. Insert it into the knot and twist. You are going to twist until it feels like your bone is snapping. If you aren't screaming, you aren't doing it right. Lock that stick in place. You have just bought yourself 2 hours before the limb dies, but you have saved the rest of the body. Now let's talk about the hole itself. If the wound is in the torso or a junction area where you can't use a tourniquet, you have to plug the leak. The biggest lie Hollywood taught you is the tampon myth. You think stuffing a tampon into a bullet hole stops bleeding. Does not. A tampon is designed to absorb fluid and wick it away. Putting a sponge in a hemorrhage is like trying to dry up a flooding river. A paper towel, it just expands and hides the fact that you are still bleeding out underneath. The reality is grim. You have to wound pack. You need gauze or strips of clean cotton. And you don't just put it on top, you have to shove it inside. You need to push that fabric deep into the meat, right down to the bone, or wherever the vessel is torn. You are filling the void to create internal pressure. It is going to hurt more than getting shot. Your brain will scream at you to stop touching the injury. Ignore it. Keep packing until you can't fit any more fabric in. Push even harder. You are essentially turning your wound into a solid block of pressure. Once the bleeding is controlled, we have to address the foreign object. This is where 90% of survivors kill themselves. You want to dig the bullet out. You have seen the movies where the hero bites a leather strap, digs in with a knife, and drops the slug into a metal tray with a satisfying clink. Do not do this. A bullet is hot when it enters you. It is sterile, and it cauterizes its own path. It is currently acting as a plug. If you go digging around with unwashed fingers and a dirty knife, you are doing 2 things: slicing through tissues and nerves that the bullet missed. You turn a puncture wound into an excavation site. Unless the bullet is literally pressing against the skin on the other side, leave it. Your body will encase it in scar tissue. You can live 40 years with lead in you. You won't live 40 minutes if you nick an artery trying to play surgeon. Now comes the invisible killer. A minor infection is a death sentence. You need to clean the wound, but you are probably going to do it wrong. The instinct is to pour alcohol or hydrogen peroxide into the hole. If you do this, you are chemical burning your own flesh. Peroxide destroys healthy cells just as fast as it destroys bacteria. You are killing the very tissue that needs to heal. The fix is dilution. You need water, gallons of it, ideally boiled and cooled, but volume matters more than perfection. You need pressure. Punch a pinhole in the cap of a water bottle to create a high pressure jet blasts the wound. You need to flush out the clothing fibers, the dirt, and the dead tissue. Not delicate, you are power. Washing a sidewalk. The goal is to reduce the bacterial load to a level your immune system can fight. You no longer have pharmacy backup. Let's move to the psychological warfare phase. This is the part nobody talks about. You are wounded, you are weak. In a collapse scenario, you are now a target. If you are limping, holding your arm, or grimacing, you look like easy prey to looters or rival groups. The myth is that you should show your injury to get sympathy. The reality is that in a starvation scenario, sympathy is the first resource to run out. You need to fake vitality. This is the fine bluff. If you have an arm wound, pad your jacket so the sling is hidden inside the bulk of the coat. If you have a leg wound, bind it tight enough that you can stand on it for short bursts. When you are visible to others, you mask the pain. You stand straight. You hold your weapon steady. You do not let them see you bleed. You can collapse and cry when you are behind a locked door, but out there you are a statue. A predator attacks a limping gazelle, not the one staring it down. Deception is your first layer of armor. Finally, we have to talk about closure. You found a sewing kit. You think you're going to stitch the wound shut like a seamstress, put the needle down. Suturing a dirty gunshot wound is suicide. If you close the skin, you trap the bacteria inside a dark, warm, moist, oxygen-free environment. The perfect breeding ground for Clostridium, the bacteria that causes gas gangrene. Flesh will literally ferment, it will bubble and turn black, and you will die screaming. The medical standard for war zones is healing by secondary intention. That means you leave the hole open, you pack it with wet to dry dressings, and you let it heal from the bottom up. It takes weeks, it leaves a horrific, jagged scar. It is messy and it smells. But an open wound drains, a stitched wound rots. You are trading cosmetic ugliness for biological survival. While you are doing all this, you are fighting a silent killer. Called the Triad of Death, it sounds like a metal band. A physiological death loop. It starts with hypothermia. You lose blood, you lose heat. Even in summer, a trauma victim freezes. When body temp drops, blood stops clotting, it becomes thin like water. This is coagulopathy. You bleed faster because you are cold. Leads to acidosis. Your cells suffocate and turn acidic. The death spiral is unstoppable. Once started, you must stay warm. Strip wet clothes. Immediately wrap yourself in foil carpet or curtains to trap heat. If you are shivering, you are dying. Pain management. Forget whiskey. Alcohol thins the blood and makes bleeding worse. Embrace the suck. Pain keeps you awake. Infection starts. Look to history. Use honey, real raw honey. It creates osmotic shock, sucking water out of bacteria until they die. But cover it or you'll attract ants. Keep your feet elevated in the shock position to refill the engine. Watch out for compartment syndrome. Swelling that crushes muscle. Do not cut it open. You are not a surgeon. Become a watcher. Conserve calories. If you lift heavy things, you will tear your internal clots and bleed out. Survival isn't about being an action hero. It's about being a mechanic. You are fixing a broken hydraulic pump in a hostile environment. You stop the leak. You clean the gears. You keep the engine warm. The bullet doesn't matter. The scar is just a receipt that proves you paid the price. The only thing that matters is keeping enough red fluid on the inside to keep the brain firing. You aren't trying to be invincible. You are just trying to be harder to kill than the environment around you.